Welcome to Vigorous Health. I'm Coach Steve. In this video, I want to give you guys an update on how it's going with my post-cycle therapy and let you know how the progression or regression of my non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is going. And for the guys that don't know why I'm doing PCT and that I developed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or that I was diagnosed with it, I'll put up a card right here so you guys know what's going on. Watch that first and then come back here so I can give you guys a 3-week, there's 3 weeks between both videos, this one and the last one, a 3-week update on the status of my PCT and NAFLD. Okay, that out of the way, let's go over post-cycle therapy first. I'll give you guys spoilers for my blood work results, which we'll discuss a little bit later towards the end of this video. My total testosterone is 650 nanograms per deciliter. If I want to round that up, 650 nanograms per deciliter. And my liver enzymes came down from around 100 to 120 down to 60 to 65 units per liter. All right, that out of the way, how am I feeling now during post-cycle therapy? Honestly, I feel a lot better than I did 3.5 weeks ago when I did my blood work and my total testosterone was 171 nanograms per deciliter. And all the other markers were subclinical as well, so I was clinically androgen deficient. I stopped injecting around that time, I think 5.5 weeks. So I stopped taking testosterone and Primobolan 5.5 weeks prior. I did my blood work. Then based on my total testosterone levels, I decided to wait another week to start ACG. So, I was struggling a little bit more for 5 days after getting the blood work results because I knew, the weird thing is like you feel you're okay. And then you do your blood work and you see a marker off and it messes with your mind a little bit. So, sometimes you feel good and your liver markers are off and you're like, maybe I don't feel good. And then sometimes you feel good and your testosterone levels are way low and then you don't feel good also. So I felt good prior to doing the blood work. And then I realized, okay, my testosterone level is only 171 nanograms per deciliter and free and bioavailable and everything else is far below the reference range. And then I felt a little bit off and tired and, lethargic and all the symptoms you would generally associate with androgen deficiency. But before I diagnosed myself with blood work, honestly, it wasn't the case. So I cruised that out. And then a couple of days later, I started ACG. So that was 2 weeks ago. That was the first or the second phase of my post-cycle therapy. So the first phase is to let all the androgens decline. And the second phase is to restart the testicles and testosterone and semen production again. Now, ideally, I wanted to use triptorelin and get a step earlier where you tell the pituitary gland to produce LH and FSH by themselves. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get triptorelin, pharmaceutical grade. I'm able to get underground lab triptorelin, but I don't want to take the risk that that's underdosed or another compound. Maybe it's Kispeptin 10, for example, or gonadorelin. You never know. I don't want to take the risk. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get triptorelin prescribed, and I wasn't able to get HMG prescribed either. So I went with pharmaceutical grade ACG instead to start the second phase of post-cycle therapy. Again, I would recommend everybody, if you have access to it, pharmaceutical grade HMG or triptorelin. I would prefer that over ACG, especially triptorelin, because it's an earlier step in the hypothalamic pituitary testis axis, starting between the hypothalamus and the pituitary instead of starting between the pituitary and the testes, right? And ACG isn't really bioidentical in men. It's bioidentical in pregnant women. And men have it only in trace amounts. So I would prefer HMG over ACG, but sometimes it's not available. So I had to go with ACG. I used 2000 IUs every other day for 2 weeks. And my total testosterone went from 171 nanograms per deciliter. Well, I'm assuming it's a little bit lower because my hormone levels were declining, right? So I assumed that 171 nanograms per deciliter testosterone was still lingering testosterone from the injection I had 5.5 weeks prior. So based on the curve, I did a little curve. Okay, my total testosterone was about 1,500 to 1,800 on cycle with 2 injections per week of half a cc. Let that taper over 5.5 weeks. I expected to be around, I think it was like 75 nanograms per deciliter a week later, which I felt was low enough to start the second phase of PCT. Now, after introducing ACG to my post-cycle therapy, libido went up first, and then it went down a little bit. And when I look at my serum estradiol levels, funnily enough, and I have no idea why, that didn't increase as much as my total testosterone levels did. So I was 171 nanograms per deciliter, increased to 650 nanograms per deciliter 2 weeks after ACG, or 75 to 650 nanograms per deciliter. But my estradiol was only 14 picograms per milliliter or 13 picograms per milliliter, and now it's 23, 24. So that didn't increase so much. And even though back then the testosterone to estrogen ratio was within a favorable ratio for libido, now it's not, because my total testosterone to estradiol levels is only 23 to 1 or 24 to 1. So it's not that favorable. Libido took a little bit of a hit. First it went up and now it went down. But my strength, my workout capacity, my training intensity is going up again. So it went down as the testosterone levels were declining. And now after adding the ACG and having medium of the range total testosterone level and medium of the range free testosterone and bioavailable testosterone is a little bit over the reference range because SHBG didn't increase so much yet. Again, because serum estradiol is not increasing that much so far. Albumin is in the normal range. We'll go over all of that later. So how do I feel? I feel better than 3 weeks ago. I don't feel as good as when I was on cycle, but judging by this blood work results, I still don't qualify for hormone replacement, even though I have a script for hormone replacement. But there's another video for that. I'll put up another card for that video, which discusses methods to make yourself clinically androgen deficient so you can get a script. So based on these blood work results, again, this is on ACG, so I'm stimulating my testicles properly. 2,000 IUs every other day is quite a high amount. But again, I was on cycle for 8 years. And the longer you stay on, the more ACG you're probably going to need for post-cycle therapy to start to transition into the third phase, which is Nolvadex and Clomid. So I started Nolvadex and Clomid three days ago after I saw these results. I was happy. I wanted to see if I needed to replace ACG with triptorelin or HMG and, go with the underground route, or that my total testosterone levels were sufficient to transition into phase 3, which is Nolvadex and Clomid. So that's where we are now. I'm running typical PCT that you can find anywhere on the internet, 100 milligrams of Clomid per day and 40 milligrams of Nolvadex per day. I'm very sure that by the end of this 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks protocol of tapering the Nolvadex and Clomid down slowly, my IGF-1 is going to be non-existent. But hey, it is what it is. Sometimes you got to sacrifice a little bit to get other healthy things in order. So, I can restore my serum IGF-1 concentrations relatively easily with growth hormone, which I'm still using right now. But I'm suspecting that the Nolvadex and Clomid are going to have a more suppressive effect on my IGF-1 levels compared to whatever boost I'm getting from the 2 units of growth hormone that I'm running right now. So when I'm saying I'm off cycle, it's only off the androgens. And I'm still on underperformance enhancing drugs because this is the curse of bodybuilding. Once you go on, even though you go off steroids or SARMs, you understand the beneficial effects of a growth hormone, a clenbuterol, GW1516, T4, etc. So I'm not suppressing my HPTA, but I'm still on performance enhancing drugs. So let's say I'm 1/3 natty, quarter natty, if you want to label it. Okay, so feeling good. I'm ready to start phase 3. So far, 3 days after using Clomid, I have no vision issues. I have no emotional issues. Never say never. I'll let you guys know on Instagram or the next update video about the status of the post-cycle therapy at the end when I'm ready to do blood work after 4 weeks of Nolvadex and Clomid to see if I want to continue that with another 2 weeks at a lower dose just to maintain the LH and FSH concentrations. Both of those came up as well, but they're still subclinical, so I definitely need Nolvadex and Clomid to restart this HPTA properly. Training intensity is good. Libido is a little bit wishy-washy. Hopefully that gets better soon when my serum estradiol levels goes up. And overall, I feel fine. I feel productive. I feel motivated. And I don't have any of the... How do you say? I don't experience any of these things that most men get when they're at subclinical levels of testosterone. And I'm not sure if that because besides the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, my body is in a good state of health, or maybe because I'm financially secure, or maybe that I have a lovely and respectful and supportive partner who's now editing all these YouTube videos. So everything is going well, and I'm expecting that I'm going to make a full recovery after I finish the third phase with Nolvadex and Clomid. Now, Nolvadex and Clomid, because it produces bioidentical LH and FSH, I'm going to assume that my testosterone levels are going up a little bit. But these LH and FSH levels will be a little bit out of the reference range. And you'll see that the longer you run Clomid and Nolvadex, the higher the LH and FSH levels go. So by that time, my testosterone might increase a little bit. The steady increase of follicle-stimulating hormone will help to sensitize and upregulate the luteinizing hormone chorionic gonadotropin receptor, because I'm sure it took a little bit of a beating in this surplus of ACG. Again, ACG is only present in trace amounts, and taking 2,000 IUs per day is, well, the ratio is probably off the screen. So follicle-stimulating hormone should help to sensitize the LACG receptor again, making them responsive and susceptible to luteinizing hormone. And once both follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are somewhere at the top of the range, or maybe slightly over it, I'm expecting that my total testosterone will be, realistically, let's say 700 nanograms per deciliter. Maybe I'll be happy with 800. I'll be happy with 800 nanograms per deciliter. But if it stays around 650, maybe drops down to 500 nanograms per deciliter, my natural testosterone at 26 years old, before I ever touched steroids, was 650 nanograms per deciliter. So now on ACG, I'm exactly the same. But of course, you're promoting that through a different pathway. And, again, it's a surplus of ACG and not a normal amount of LH and FSH. So hopefully by the time 4 weeks into Nolvadex and Clomid, my testosterone will be a little bit higher. Maybe it will drop down a little bit. I'm not really sure. We'll prove that with blood work and then give you guys an update. Anywhere between 500 nanograms per deciliter to, or over 800 nanograms per deciliter, I consider that I recovered. Anything under 500 nanograms per deciliter, considering that my total testosterone is 650 nanograms per deciliter at 26 years old, now that I'm 37, 500 nanograms per deciliter, that steady decline, I feel that's fair. I feel that's a fair decline, for 10 years. So let's say, my total testosterone might have been like 900 or 1,000 during puberty, maybe even more, declining to 26, 650, declining to 500 at 37. I'd be happy with that. I can accept that my testicles are able to produce 500 nanograms per deciliter on the total testosterone. I'll be happy with that. Now, if it's anywhere lower, let's say 350, which I don't think is the case, but hey, you never know. So let's say it's 300 nanograms per deciliter or lower, then I finally qualify for the testosterone replacement therapy prescription that I have. Yeah, even though I got a little bit through a backdoor loophole. So if that's the case, I'll go on hormone replacement maybe a month later after finishing the third phase of PCT, because again, if I do my blood work on Nolvadex and Clomid, I'm sure it's going to be elevated. And then I have to wait and see if my hypothalamic pituitary testes axis can actually sustain that. Maybe it will increase. Who knows? Maybe all the low IGF-1 levels is preventing nutrient partitioning in my testicles, allowing for high testosterone levels. Just pure speculation. Don't quote me on this, please. So let's see 1 month after finishing PCT if my total testosterone levels will be sufficient. And then I'll decide on a step forward. So I'll stay off for at least another 4 weeks plus 4 weeks. Yeah, so that's where we're going to be then. That's February already. So no cycling until February. Hopefully by the time I have my non-alcoholic liver disease resolved. And I think that's a very good segue to transition into that aspect of this video. I want to discuss a couple potential causes, because I saw a lot of your comments in the comment section on YouTube. What caused it? Was it this? What is it that? And I honestly think it's multifactorial. So I made a whole list. And I got my show notes right here. So I'll read them out for you. So, what could potentially contribute to my development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? For the last 2 years, I've taken a moderate dose of Lantus, between 10 IUs up to 50 IUs. Yeah, 50 IUs was not on a ketogenic diet. That was when I was in the surplus of carbohydrates during the off season. So for the last 2 years, I think man, on Sunday I don't take it, so that's 365 minus 52 weeks. So that's, let's say, 300 days out of the years on Lantis. I did not lose any form of insulin sensitivity whatsoever. Yes, I kept track of my blood sugar levels. I can barely feel my fingertips right now because I've checked my blood sugar levels so many times. You know, you win some, you lose some, right? So there were no signs of losing insulin sensitivity, even when I was eating 700 grams of carbohydrates during the off season. I also took a low dose of Accutane for maybe 7 years. And when I say low dose, I mean 10 milligrams 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That was enough to keep the acne at bay, but it was not enough to prevent acne from forming in the future. Now, I was always a little bit hesitant to take the therapeutic or the prescribed dose of Accutane because of the drying out the joints. I still train insane, so I want to keep my joint integrity at the highest possible capacity I can. So that prevented me from taking like 3 months of 50 milligrams of Accutane or 80 milligrams of Accutane per day. I don't think I would have experienced any depression while using 50 to 80 milligrams of Accutane. But again, I never tried it, so I can't say that for sure. It was mostly the joint issues and, of course, the known increase in liver enzymes that Accutane causes at these clinical doses to resolve your acne problems. So I've run that for 7 years pretty much straight on. Yeah, I would only come off if I would do a cruise on 250, 200 milligrams of testosterone per week, and I would still get a little bit of acne, but I will be able to tolerate it. But if I go over 500 milligrams of testosterone or any other DHT-based compound as part of the cycle, I would need to take Accutane to prevent the acne formation. And now that I come off that, I think it was 8 weeks ago, or when I did my blood work and I was diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, I discontinued that immediately. And now I have a little bit of acne, but I think because I let my hormones decline and now I'm in, the reference range, I have a little bit of acne, maybe a pimple here and there, but it's manageable. So that could have been a contributing factor for sure. Another possible option is running 6 months of low-dose Anavar during a cycle. So when I said low dose, I mean a low dose of 5 milligrams per day, just to facilitate a little bit of mind-muscle connection, promote collagen synthesis. But again, it's an oral. It passes your liver. I didn't do sublingual or dermal or rectal absorption, even though I experimented with, well, you guys are going to quote me on it, but I've experimented with many different delivery mechanisms of oral steroids without an ester attachment. And for 5 milligrams per day, I felt that oral, the conventional route, was substantial to give, or was sufficient to give me substantial results considering the dose. 5 milligrams, whether that's on a hormone replacement dose or on a moderate cycle or sufficient cycle of, let's say, 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of testosterone per week. I think usually by that time I was at 25 milligrams of Anavar per day. So I would do 5 milligrams for a while, maybe 10, and then maybe 20, then 25, for example. 6 months. Yeah, and even though it's metabolized in the kidneys, or that's what they say, it's passing through the liver because you're taking it as an oral. So did that contribute? I'm sure it was a contributing factor. Next on the list, not coming off performance-enhancing drugs for 8 years. Blasting and cruising, whether that's a low dose of 250 milligrams of testosterone as part of my cruise, or up to 2,000 milligrams, which is the handicap I gave myself. I don't want to go over 2,000 milligrams per week when I'm in a caloric deficit. Never during the off-season. I don't go over 1,000 milligrams during the off-season. In my last off-season, I maxed out at 250 milligrams test, 200 primo. That was enough. That was more than enough. I went up to 115 kilos and I could still see my abs. Was it a pretty 115 kilos? No, of course not. It was in a caloric surplus, 600, 700 carbohydrates per day. So I was a little bit fluffy. I'll be honest about that. But when you eat in a caloric surplus, the PDs don't have to be that high unless you're in a caloric deficit. And then the PDs go up to maintain all that muscle tissue that you built during the off-season. Okay, so the maximum dose I took was 2,000 milligrams, whether that's 2,000 milligrams of test, 1,500 milligrams of test, and let's say 50 milligrams of Superdrol per day, or 1,000 milligrams of test and 1,000 milligrams of Primo, 2,000 milligrams of an anabolic steroids combined. That was my handicap, the maximum dose I want to take. I don't think I would ever take 1,000 milligrams of test and 1,000 milligrams of Trembolone. That would be way too much. Actually, I don't want to run. I don't want to run Trenbolone ever again. I would probably reduce that to like, 700 tests, 350 Trenbolone. I would be happy with that. 1,050 milligrams of those two combined. Okay. So, I'm sure that contributed. 8 years of blasting and cruising, I don't think it helped. So a lot of people told me, Steve, you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You should stay on hormone replacement. That might be true. It might be a mistake that I'm doing post-cycle therapy now. If that's the case, we'll figure it out in 4 weeks, 8 weeks from now. I'll take full responsibility. I gave myself non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It was my choice to take performance-enhancing drugs for 8 years. Now it's my choice to do post-cycle therapy. For another reason, when I'm on cycle, whether that's 250 milligrams a test, 200 tests, 150, 100 milligrams a test, which should probably give me around 650 nanograms per deciliter on my total testosterone reading as well, maybe 125. If I'm on performance-enhancing drugs, I want to train balls to the wall. I want to bodybuild. Yeah. Now I'm doing post-cycle therapy. I reduced the intensity to 75%. I took out all the non-required performance-enhancing aspects to increase training capacity. I'm letting my body rest. I'm letting my mind rest so I don't feel that fatigued anymore during the day. I'm way more productive. And as you guys see, I'm keeping up with the daily upload schedule on YouTube. And hopefully I can maintain that rhythm, hopefully. Trying to keep the momentum here on YouTube. So I'm way more productive because I put bodybuilding on the back burner. Yeah? I want to resolve this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease if I'm on performance-enhancing drugs besides the growth hormone and the clenbuterol that I'm taking. If I'm on performance-enhancing drugs, namely testosterone, I want to bodybuild 24/7. That's my passion, that's my love, that's my desire. So I took that away, and now I can focus on resolving this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Was that a mistake? Time will tell. You guys can do the finger-pointy YouTube comment in the comment section, whatever. I told you so. Hey, I'm the only one honest and open enough to discuss this with you guys, so be gentle, yeah? Moving on to the next subject. Let's see. Another contributing factor was excluding choline in supplemental form for, I think I already ran that for maybe 2 years when I was blasting and cruising, this third cycle of blasting and cruising. So I ran choline for maybe 2 years. I did my blood work frequently. Did I notice any change in liver enzymes? No, they were still elevated. I get 300 milligrams of dietary choline from fish, beef, whatever, eggs, it's full with choline. I get my eggs in every day. So I was still getting the sufficient amount of choline for my diet, but I was not supplementing with choline, whether that's from choline and isomaltol supplements or phosphatidylcholine from sunflower lecithin. So I added that in. I both added that in, and now my liver enzymes are improving. So I will probably have to keep those supplements in indefinitely because excluding them might have been a contributing factor. All right, next one. Now, the downside of choline and carnitine and betaine, which I all run, I stopped using betaine supplements. So that's the pepsin and the betaine, which help to increase stomach acid and help you digest proteins. I switched to apple cider vinegar. I no longer have any acid reflux. I take a little bit of apple cider vinegar with each meal, whether I take Cialis or oral steroids or whatever, or off cycle. I still take apple cider vinegar with each meal. I used to take betaine, but I discontinued that because I feel that it helps with the digestion and prevents acid reflux. And with betaine, I always got a little bit of a nasty burp. You finish your meal and then 30 minutes later, there's this not too pleasant. So I discontinued that, but I'm still taking choline and carnitine, whether that's from the diet or from supplementation. Unfortunately, I can't check for TMAO here in Thailand. I can't do that through a blood work, and I can't check that in the urinalysis. I called many hospitals. I can't do it at Brio Labs. Unfortunately, I asked them if they would incorporate the test, but again, it's expensive to get the machinery and the testing equipment ready for a TMAO check. So I'm unable to check for that, but I don't think that it contributed because I increased, since the last blood work, I actually increased my carnitine and I increased my choline intake, but my liver enzymes went down. So I'm assuming, based on this progression of good results, that TMAO is not a factor. So oral carnitine and oral choline in a surplus, probably more than I required, reduced my liver enzymes, and I don't see any, or it contributed to the progression. So I don't think TMAO is a factor. But again, it's something to keep into consideration. Yeah. All right. Maybe it's the boatload of health supplements that I've been taking for the last 15 years. I started looking at the supplements since the beginning because I was drug-free for the first 11 years. So you experiment with creatine and you experiment with 5-HTP and vitamin D3 and magnesium and all these things that are supposed to help with the testosterone boosting effect and immunity and anabolism and etc. I even took the stackers. So you remember those stackers 1 and 2, which contain mohung and ephedra. So based on the current WADA doping list, there was a period in time where I took stackers 2 when I was drug-free. Based on the WADA doping list right now, I was not drug-free at that time. So when I say 11 years natural, the only thing that I can be considered as a performance-enhancing drug was the stackers 1 and 2, which contained ephedrine in a trace amount. And yeah, we would take that on those big parties as well. The different story. I've been going to like parties with 50 to 60,000 people since I was 16 years old with fake IDs. And I didn't want to promote myself to some of the hardcore stuff. So stackers it was. Again, different story for a different video. Maybe that contributed to my non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as well. Trying not to reduce or rule anything out here. Yeah. Being 100% transparent with you guys so you can learn something. Don't fault me for it, please. Okay, another contributing factor is intermittent high fat intake. On a ketogenic diet, I went up to 300 grams of fat per day. On the carnivore diet, that was 150 grams of saturated fat. I'm sure it contributed because when I look at my chart of my liver enzymes over the last, 15 years, my liver enzymes are like this, correlated to my body weight. And then at the carnivore diet, boop, and I set a higher baseline for myself. So I'm sure it contributed. And I don't care what anybody freaking says. Carnivore diet is not supposed to increase liver enzymes. Well, I was eating a lot of butter and a lot of cheese and a lot of beef every day. It contained a lot of saturated fat. And what I speculation, no science, a large amount of fat is entering the liver and 99% is exiting into the bloodstream. That 1% gets left behind, contributing to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So I'm sure, or I'm convinced, and I don't want to rule it out, that high fat intake, especially over 1 gram per 1 kilo body weight, combined perhaps with insulin, another contributing factor. During the time of the carnivore diet, I was not using any insulin, but on a ketogenic diet, I would use insulin just to help with the gluconeogenesis, etc. Different video again. So I'm sure high dietary fat intake, even though it was a ketogenic diet, reducing carbohydrate intake, let's say all that fat has to pass through the liver, right? Let's say 99.9% pass through, 0.1% get left behind, unable to exit the liver, getting stored as fatty tissue, causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease over time. I'm pretty sure that's a contributing factor. Now, on the opposite end, I've also had intermittent high carb intake, up to 700 grams of carbs for certain periods of time for the off season. Now, during that time, I would lower my fat intake, maybe 75 grams in total for 100 kilos body weight, towards the end. But recently, I've been increasing my fat intake because I felt that it helped with anabolism, helped with recovery, helped to keep my stamina going. So there was reasonably high fat intake for the amount of carbohydrates that I took, but I felt that it was more anabolic that way. My protein content went down to, let's say, 225 grams of carbs, or 225 grams of protein, 700 carbs, and maybe 120 grams of fat. 1 gram per 1 kilo body weight. I've done 100 different diets, so if I go off track, it's difficult to remember after 20 years of bodybuilding and experimentation. So high fat intake, high carbohydrate intake, I'm sure both contributed. It's bodybuilding, yeah? So maybe it's unescapable to get moderate signs of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease at one point, because the food intake is so astronomical to fuel the astronomical amounts of muscle that we carry. And the last thing that I think contributed is a lack of fasted cardio, which I didn't do up until maybe 3 years ago. Laziness, to be fair. You know, you feel you don't want it. You get, like that video I made, putting up a card right away so you can watch that later on if you want, or intermittently if you want right now. I always felt that cardio detracted a little bit from my quad size, and it took me a while to figure out which incline, which cardio machine, and which intensity level would not, and which PED protocol prior, would not detract from my quad size and reduce the training intensity after 4 weeks of consistent cardio. So for me, that's now an incline of 3 to 6%. Walking about 5 kilometers per hour on the treadmill. Yeah, I can do the elliptical, but I don't have that at home, and I don't like to go to the gym twice a week, or twice per day. Once per day is fine to get my workout in, and I'll do my cardio at home. But man, for many years I didn't do that. I'll be honest. So the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, I've been incorporating daily cardio at least 6 days a week, and then the seventh day I'm cleaning this house of ours with my wife, and it's 200 square meters, so takes us a while to vacuum all that stuff and mop the floor. I consider that cardio. I would always do that in a fasted state. So maybe that by doing that the last 2 to 3 years, that prevented the progression a little bit of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And maybe it contributed that I didn't do that early on, or for the first 5 to 6 years of this blasting and cruising phase on my third cycle. Yeah. So I think all those things contributed, whether that's a lot or a little bit. I think this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that I have right now that is slowly being resolved was multifactorial. I don't think I can pinpoint it on one or another aspect, or it's probably just a combination of things. And now that I know, now that it's diagnosed, I'm taking the active steps, which I feel are correct, by going off cycle and by changing my health supplementation and by doing frequent blood work to see if it's getting better or not getting better, so I can make adjustments and I don't have to guesstimate that it's going well, because again, I feel good. So right now, so far, so good. Let's go over the health supplements that I was taking before, and I made some modifications. So let's go over the health supplements, what changed and what has been contributing up to now. Okay, let's go over the old liver stack first, because I made some adjustments to it. I'll put that up right here so you guys can follow along. I was using either 1,000 milligrams of TUDCA or 1,500 milligrams of UDCA, because NutriCost shipping was slow AF. Luckily, I was able to get 4 bottles of TUDCA in the mail recently, so I increased that a little bit. We'll discuss that later. I was using 1,800 milligrams of calcium disodium EDTA as a chelation medication, 1,000 milligrams of calcium diglucarate to promote glucocoronation of toxins. I was using 800 IUs vitamin E mixed tocopherol, the mixed one. 400 milligrams of SAM-E to increase glutathione content within the liver. I was taking 2,000 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine and 1,000 milligrams of reduced glutathione as a glutathione stack. I was taking 1,000 milligrams of phosphatidylcholine from sunflower lecithin, plus 4,000 milligrams of choline and isolatol, which is 2,000 milligrams of actual choline. I was taking 600 milligrams of silymarin or milk thistle, 1,000 milligrams of berberine, and 1,000 milligrams of metformin, which was overkill, and my serum IGF-1 levels was like 67 nanograms per deciliter. So we stopped the metformin right after that. So from this stack, because I didn't notice a significant change between letting my hormones decline and doing my initial blood work, going on this protocol, and then doing blood work 5.5 weeks later, since I didn't notice a significant change based on the before and after, I discontinued 400 milligrams of SAM-E. I didn't feel that it was adding on top of the N-acetylcysteine and the reduced glutathione that I was already taking. It didn't change my skin pigmentation. It didn't make me any paler. And it didn't change my blood work. So I took that out. I finished the bottle of, 50 tablets. Finished it. It's pricey, so I didn't notice an immediate result. Maybe that's a mistake. Time will tell. I discontinued the calcium disodium EDTA because I felt that my serum iron and ferritin levels were going down a little bit and I didn't want to reduce them any further to prevent skewed results on your complete blood count. So when you look at my current blood work results, you see that my complete blood count is still A-OK. I also stopped calcium deglucarate because I felt that my estradiol levels were very low. I already stopped diindolmethane a long time ago. But of course, calcium deglucarate helps with excretion of hormones. So it might be beneficial to help you prepare for the first or the second phase of PCT when you're introducing triptorelin, HMG, or ACG to let your hormones levels decline a little bit faster. But when I saw that my total testosterone was 171 and my serum estradiol was 13, I took out the calcium deglucarate. Let's see, what else? I also took out the metformin again because the IGF-1 was... longevity low. So, no more metformin, but I still kept the berberine. So, what am I currently taking? What I've been taking for the last 3 weeks. I'll put it up again. I increased my TUDCA to 2,000 milligrams per day. I did a little more research, and in cases of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, they prescribe between 20 to 25 milligrams of TUDCA or UDCA per 1 kilo of body weight. Back then I was about 105 kilos. Right now I'm dipping below 100. Unfortunately, 99.7 kg at my lowest, which is scary. I like those triple digits, man. I've been triple digits for years. But hey, it's all part of the plan. So 99.7 kgs at my lowest, 20 to 25 milligrams per kilo, resulting in 2,000 milligrams of TUDCA. So right now I'm running TUDCA only because I have those 4 bottles of NutriCost. At one point they will run out because it's 1 bottle per week. And it's pricey. That's $50 with shipping. So I might do 1 week on TUDCA and then 1 week on 3,000 milligrams of UDCA because it's available in pharmacies here and it's a little bit easier. So I can buffer with the UDCA when the TUDCA is on its way. Okay, I stayed the same. 800 IUs of vitamin E mixed, however you pronounce it. The same is 2,000 milligrams of NAC. The same is 1,000 milligrams of reduced glutathione. I increased my phosphatidylcholine from sunflower lecithin from 1,000 milligrams to 1,440 milligrams per day as part of the experiment to see if I had TMAO problems, which is not the case. I'm assuming based on my blood work results. I increased to 8,000 milligrams of choline and inositol, which is 4,000 milligrams of choline. So that's in total 5,440 milligrams of supplemental choline, and then another 3 to 4,000 of choline coming from my diet. So I'm pushing 10,000 milligrams of choline per day. It appears to be working. Okay, next one. The same is silymarin, 600 milligrams per day. I reduced my berberine to 500 milligrams per day. I added back in 1,000 milligrams of citrus bergamot and 10 milligrams of ezetimibe, or ezetimibe. It's difficult to pronounce. So after I got my polyphorus results, I discussed with Leo from Leo Longevity a little bit about my non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and he gave me a suggestion to add in 10 milligrams of this statin drug, ezetimibe, and I added in the citrus bergamot again because I know that it helps to reduce non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and helps to exit fat from the liver. So ezetimibe causes the same effect. It reduces cholesterol production and helps to excrete fat from the liver. So far that's been contributing, and I feel that's one of the more important contributing factors in the degression of my liver enzymes over the last 3 weeks. So Leo, I salute you. Thank you so much. Your next dinner is on me, like I mentioned to you before. So send me the bill. And that's the least I can do for your generous help over the last couple of weeks. Okay, I added in 40 milligrams of clenbuterol and 30 milligrams of cardarine. I added in the clenbuterol about 3 weeks ago. And I added in the cardarine a couple days ago. Now, both are lipolytic agents, so they help with fat loss because I had to increase my calories when I added in the ACG. I don't want to do PCT in a caloric deficit. So when the hormones were declining, I was in a caloric deficit, 1 meal per day with 2 days of fasting per week, which was, I was very lethargic and tired, but hey, it's part of the process. You can't be up and up all the time. Sometimes you got to be a little bit low to resolve these issues. So I was in a steep caloric deficit during the time and I lost some body fat, but I increased my calories when I added in the ACG, and I will continue in a slight caloric surplus to make PCT as successful as possible, because I don't feel that PCT is successful when you're in a caloric deficit. Now, your calories are low, your testosterone might be low, and the same you can see in drug-free. True drug-free competitors, the longer they diet, the lower their testosterone levels are going to be. So like I mentioned in the PCT ebook for the guys that bought it, I'll mention it here again. Do post-cycle therapy in a caloric surplus. Doesn't have to be 1,000 calorie caloric surplus. It can be as little as 100, 200. I cycle my calories based on activity levels. Today I don't train, but I do cardio. My calories are lower than yesterday when I did a epic leg workout. I eat a little bit more on those days to facilitate the recovery. Still recovering. Training intensity went up after adding the ACG because I felt better, because my testosterone levels were up. Okay, so hopefully I didn't forget anything. Let me go over the show notes again. Oh yeah, I took out the Nabivolol, again on Leo and Longevity's recommendation. Now, Nabivolol reduces your heart rate, which reduces your ability to burn fat. Again, your heart works on fatty acids, and if you have a moderate heart rate, the way clenbuterol works is increasing your heart rate, increasing fatty acid oxidation. Yeah, so I took the Nabivolol out and put the clenbuterol in. Unfortunately, that means a higher resting elevated heart rate, which I'm not very happy with. I don't feel that comfortable. I feel much better on Nabivolol. It's going to be temporary. Once this is resolved, I'm going to go back on Nabivolol because I like that feeling of being calm and leveled. So as a replacement, I experimented with 20 milligrams tolmersartan, and I got veiny AF, and I got a little bit of increase in body temperature, again, because the vascularity and the blood is going to the outer capillaries. And the same you notice with Cialis. When you first start, maybe 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, you get a little bit hot. You feel a little bit of the flushing because the capillaries open up. You get a little bit more blood flow to the face, and now the face is radiating this inner body temperature. And the same I noticed with tolmersartan, only 20 milligrams, is that the vascularity went up, capillaries extended, and I got a little bit redder, and my body temperature on the outside went up because it's radiating from the inner body temperature. So I only take that now on leg day because that's the only time during the week, during the workout, that I need a little bit of blood pressure management. I mean, I'm off most of the performance enhancing drugs, or at least the ones that are known to increase blood pressure in my scenario. So I don't need so much blood pressure management. I discontinued the Cialis a long time ago. My electrolytes are managed. And for the guys that posted in the comment fields that they did watch that electrolyte video, double salute. I highly appreciate you guys. Some of these videos I know they're a little bit in depth, but they're very essential. It might be boring, but when you watch them, they might save your life, honestly. They might save a lot of issues down the road. So that electrolyte video, for the guys that watched it already, if you didn't do that, watch that right now. Put up a card right here. I know how cards work right now. So go watch that. And thank you guys for the guys that already watched it. So I'm getting enough blood pressure management by managing my electrolytes. The Cialis is out, and I wanted to experiment with a little with tolmersartan, but I noticed that it dropped my blood pressure way too much. So Nabivolol was managing my blood pressure indirectly and keeping it around the healthy range of 60 to 65 over 120 to 125. And then I took the Nabivolol out, I let that metabolize, waited 3 days, and then I added in 20 milligrams of tolmersartan. Then 1 hour later, my blood pressure was 50 over 110. Too low for me. Too low for comfort. I didn't add the clenbuterol in by that time, but the blood pressure, when the blood pressure goes down, your heart rate picks back up to make sure that your blood pressure stays intact. So maybe it's even a little bit lower, but I noticed that my resting heart rate was going up. So I don't take tolmersartan when I do 1 meal per day, 2 meals per day as part of intermittent fasting, because taking that in the morning gives me an uncomfortably low blood pressure feeling. Again, I don't need it because nothing I'm taking is really increasing my blood pressure. So I'm only taking tolmersartan when I train legs in the morning. Then I need blood pressure management, and I already have some food in my system as part of a pre-workout shake with a surplus of sodium to, help with the pumps and the contraction, that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, blood pressure goes up a little bit when you train balls to the wall. Even though I'm training 75, 80% capacity, I'm still training as heavy as I allow myself. and it increases blood pressure a little bit. So that's the only time right now that I'm taking telmisartan. And what I think I will do in the future, by the time I'm ready to go back on cycle, when I'm 100% healthy and I'm ready to get back on cycle, I might combine 2.5 milligrams of Bivolol with 20 milligrams of telmisartan and increase both as needed. Yeah, because I like the reduced heart rate and I like the effects of telmisartan, increasing vascularity. It does increase the pumps as well. It's not as dramatic as Cialis. Man, it would be triple dipping, right? Nebivolol, Cialis, telmisartan. I've talked to a few guys already during consultations that are doing this. It appears to be working, and it appears to keep their blood pressure levels within that favorable range of 60 to 65 to over 120 to 125. Okay, finally, the blood work results. I got them right here. I'll post them somewhere on the screen. I'll try to zoom in this time because I remember last time I put them on the screen. But if you're watching these videos on your mobile phone, it's a little bit hard to read. I understand. So, you know, for the guys that put me on display on their 4K TV, I'm sorry for all the pimples and little dots and imperfections for all the guys that watch me on their phone. I'll try to put them in the bottom here and just go subject by subject and then scroll through the blood work results. It's a little bit easier to read on the phone. Okay, urinalysis first. Completely uneventful. Everything is negative. No protein, no blood, no nitrites, no nitrite, right? No ketones, no urobilinogen, no bilirubin, no leukocytes, nothing. I did drink 2 liters of water prior, and you can see that by the specific gravity is at the bottom of the range that indicates proper hydration. Okay, let's move on to the complete blood count. My hematocrit is now 48%. The last time was 51%, and I think the time before that was on cycle was 53, like pushing it, you know, to the point that you should be considering or looking for a place to donate. Not that bad, you know, I like to keep it a little bit out of the range, and then when I'm ready to donate, it's right at the top of the reference range. But 200 milligrams of Primo didn't increase it dramatically. Okay, so right now, my hematocrit is 48%. I'm happy with that. My hemoglobin is 17.0, a little bit on the high side of the reference range. My red blood cell count is, let's say, in the middle of the reference range. As expected, my white blood cell count is going up. On cycle, I'm anywhere between 4,000 to 4,500 cells per cubic meter. 3 weeks ago, I was around 5,500 cells per cubic meter. And now that I'm at the end of the second phase of PCT, my white blood cells are 6,090 cells per cubic meter. So I expect that to go up a little bit more as I maintain my total testosterone, my free testosterone levels in the reference range, the clinical reference range. So I expect it to go up a little bit, maybe 7,000 cells per square meter. And again, I just want to remind you guys, white blood cells have androgen receptors. And by increasing free androgen concentration or total free testosterone levels in your blood, your white blood cell count is going down. Now, there might be ways around that because growth hormone and primobolan help to support the immune system. And of course, white blood cells are not the only part of the immune system. It's just something you need to keep into consideration. If you overdo your free androgens or free testosterone levels in the blood, your white blood cell count will go down. And you'll see that with a lot of guys during contest prep. Towards the end, it's like 2,000 to 3,000 cells per square meter. And they get sick right before the show because they overdid their Tremboloni sandwich. And moving on to the electrolytes. So like I mentioned in the video where I actually showed you that I was doing blood work. And again, I got the scar right here to prove it. So we went to Bria Labs. I filmed the whole thing, guided you through the process of which markers I was going to check. It shows you the blood work. I didn't show the urinalysis. I don't think that would be suitable for YouTube. So, So I mentioned there that I was cramping the night before I went to go do blood work, and which is weird. I kept my electrolyte the same. Maybe I was a little bit nervous, you know, and so I cramped a little bit. I wasn't bad enough that I needed to drink tonic water or take a decent amount of potassium and sodium to prevent the cramping, but I was laying there in bed and I woke up to pee and I got a little bit of cramping going on. So I wanted to see if my serum electrolyte levels were off the next day, which, you know, your body has a good way to regulate that. Even though you're cramping a little bit, in serum, the electrolytes are usually never off. So even though I was cramping, the body has a very regulatory way to keep your serum electrolyte levels in balance. If you see those ever off, there might be a little bit of a problem with your kidney or vasopressin or renin levels, or it could also be a moment in time. So what I've seen a couple times on blood work, let's say you were during the off season, high carbohydrate intake, potassium to match, and then you need to do a mini diet. Then you deplete your glycogen stores, and as a result, you release a lot of potassium. That's one of the few cases where I've seen high serum potassium levels, because you're depleting all this glycogen, and as a result, you're liberating potassium, and that ends up in the bloodstream. So even though your potassium intake is pretty high during the off season to match the amount of carbohydrates that you were eating, or at least when you're working with me, high potassium intake, it might get released into the bloodstream and, resulting in a moderately, so let's say 5.7 MEQ per liter. So it's a little bit out of the reference range, nothing dramatic. But in most cases, your body has a very good way to regulate all these hormones through vasopressin, renin, aldosterone, etc. Okay, so I was cramping. It didn't show up in the blood work. I wanted to rule out if I had hepatitis. Luckily, both tests are negative, and I'm positive for the hepatitis vaccination, so we're all good there. So I wanted to rule that out. That's been ruled out, even though I've had plenty of street food in the past, especially when I was traveling. I traveled for a whole year. I only ate street food, but luckily I'm vaccinated, so no hepatitis, and I'm positive for the vaccination. That's still active. I'm still protected. Okay, blood chemistry. Serum glucose levels. I shouldn't be checking it, but it's super cheap. So 79 milligrams per deciliter, still insulin sensitive. I've never seen it over 100 milligrams per deciliter in my life. Maybe 102 one time, and that was at the end of the off season. 102 milligrams per deciliter. It's 99 problems, but insulin sensitivity ain't one. BUN, 19.8, around the middle of the range. I think it's about the same as last time. Creatinine came down further from, I think on cycle, it usually hovers around 1.5 milligrams per deciliter. Then the last blood work, it was, I think, 1.3, 1.4 milligrams per deciliter. Now it's 1.29, so let's say 1.3. So it's slowly declining, and I think that's because I reduced my training intensity. So, I'm pretty sure that by the time I get back to that super insane training capacity in the future, my creatinine will go up back again to 1.5, maybe even 1.6 is after leg day. Cystatin C levels are declining, and they keep declining. There were I don't remember the concentration because I don't check this so frequently, and it's an outsourced test. So they went from 1, which is top of the reference range, down to 0.5 or 0.8, and then the lowest I got it to was 0.7, and I contribute that to astragalus root extract. Thank you so much, Dante Trudeau, for bringing that to the fitness industry. So I don't see that on creatinine levels, but I do see that my cystatin C levels are nicely declining. Okay, uric acid, 4.5 milligrams per deciliter. For the guys that remember the podcast that I did with Leo on longevity, discussing uric acid going up when you're doing autophagy. No signs of autophagy yet. CPK went down from last time was 1,200 units per liter. Now it's 700 units per liter. Again, because I reduced the training capacity. But I'm suspecting that this is going up because, again, I added in the clenbuterol intermittently before I did this blood work, and now I want to run 40 micrograms of clenbuterol every day just to help with a little bit of lipolysis and promote a little bit more fat loss, even though I'm in a caloric surplus. I'm cheating here a little bit, but bodybuilding will be bodybuilding. So I'm expecting the CPK to go back up next blood work to, let's say, 2,000, maybe 2,500 units per liter. Didn't have a heart attack, don't worry. C-reactive protein went up to 3.8 milligrams per liter. Cardiovascular disease incoming. No, not really. I had a deep tissue massage therapy the day before, and I think that's the main cause. I'm not exactly sure, but it was legs. I did a deep tissue massage therapy session on my lower body, so that's scar tissue in the upper glutes, scar tissue in the upper quads, scar tissue in the hamstrings, not from injecting, but because I tore that, one side one time and another side another time, so there's a little bit of built-up scar tissue there. My deep tissue massage therapist is putting her elbows in places that make me feel it's the most painful experience ever, but hey, Comes with the territory, so I'm assuming that is what increased my C-reactive protein levels, and now that I think about it, that's probably also the cause why I was cramping during the night. Thank you, shampoo, you're the best, and your elbows and knuckles are strong enough to give me systemic inflammation. Okay. Gamma GT 11, as usual, it's low, it's always low, it's always below the reference range. Thank you, carnitine, thank you, coffee. So no real sign of... No signs of real liver damage. Lipids went down a little bit. Cholesterol, I expected it to be lower, but it did reduce. So my cholesterol is 150 milligrams per deciliter. Triglycerides are 31 milligrams per deciliter. HDL came up to 70 milligrams per deciliter. So that's awesome. And I'm matching that on the LDL cholesterol, 76 milligrams per deciliter. So that's an almost 1-to-1 ratio. That's a ratio you will never see on cycle. I'm assuming that my LDL and HDL are going to improve even more now that I'm adding Nolvadex to the mix and Clomid, because they act as an estrogen in the liver and act as an anti-estrogen in the pituitary gland. That's why they call it selective estrogen receptor modulators. They selectively modulate the receptor in the pituitary gland, blocking it and modulate it in the liver, promoting estrogen-like changes, including increases in sexual binding globulin, HDL, and reduction in LDL. So that's all good. So I'm not overdoing the 10 milligrams of ezetimibe, and I'm not overdoing the 1,000 milligrams of citrus bergamot. But let's see in 4 weeks, because that's Nolvadex, Clomid, citrus bergamot, and ezetimibe. Then they're all modulating my lipid profile levels. So hopefully it doesn't go down too much. Yeah, I'm still eating 5 whole eggs per day. It's a little bit of saturated fat. Yes, I know. It's 1,500 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams of cholesterol. If this blood work was any different, I would take those 5 whole eggs out. But I'm happy with these results, so I'm not going to make any changes to my diet just yet. Okay. Liver function tests, everything in range, and AST and ALT are creeping up to the reference range. 68 units per liter on the AST and 64 units per liter on the ALT. Okay, so that's almost at the reference range. Well, the reference range for AST is a little bit lower, so we're going to have to keep trucking along. To be fair, to be honest, to be 100% transparent, I did take a week off from training. And training increases liver enzymes too, so it could be, I'm hoping it's not, fingers crossed, I'm hoping it's not a reduction from 100 to 120 units per liter to now 60 to 65 units per liter because I stopped training for a week. I think it's because of all the changes that I made and excluding certain compounds, progressing into this post-cycle therapy and keeping on track of my health supplementation, doing fasting or intermittent fasting, throughout the week, except for Sundays. Sundays I still like to eat. Yeah, maybe that's setting me back also, but man, I got a relationship to uphold, and going out to dinner is part of that. Okay, so I'm happy with these results. I'm sure, or I hope, that my liver enzymes will go down slower or might stay maintained while I'm ruining Nolvadex and Clomid. They're passing through the liver, reducing IGF-1 levels, and they're also known to increase liver enzymes. Training is also known to increase liver enzymes. So the next blood work I do 4 weeks from now, I will not stop training. I just took a week off. I've deloaded enough, even though I didn't really get into an overtrained state, training at 75% capacity. So I deloaded enough. I don't need so much. I don't need any additional rest. I'll do my blood work on Nolvadex and Clomid at the end of this third phase of post-cycle therapy. Fingers crossed my liver enzymes are better. If they're around the same, they went better, but they got worsened by training and Nolvadex and Clomid. And if they went back up to 100 to 120 units per liter, just like before, I'm going to go to the hospital and get another ultrasound to see, because then it's been how long? Almost 3 months since the first diagnosis of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, letting my hormones decline, doing ACG, and then the third phase, 4 weeks of Nolvadex and Clomid. So if that's not the case, I'll go back to the hospital and do a comparative ultrasound on my liver to see with an actual result, not just going by the liver enzymes, with an actual result to see if it's improving. Yeah, we're ruling out step by step going through the process. So in those 3 scenarios, liver enzymes went down, thumbs up for me. Liver enzymes stayed the same, semi-thumbs up, but it maintained the same because I'm on Nolvadex and Clomid. And training as hard as I can on, post-cycle therapy. And if they increased, back to the hospital, do another ultrasound to see what the F is going on. And then lastly, hormones. Beta ACG, 30.4 milli-IU per milliliter. I'm not sure. It should be below 5 for men. I'm at 30.4. And whoop-de-freaking-do, I injected 2,000 IUs of ACG 2 days prior. You know, what I wanted to do, the same as a growth hormone test, right? You put your growth hormone intravenously. What I feel is much more better for your serum growth hormone test 5 minutes before you do the check. Or you can do that 2 hours before, 10 units intramuscularly to see what your serum growth hormone levels will be at. I wanted to experiment a little bit. 2,000 IUs of ACG intramuscularly and see how high my beta ACG would be. Unfortunately, I totally forgot. So this is this 30.4 MIU per milliliter is the ACG that I injected subcutaneously 2 days prior. So I'm not exactly sure how much it would be if I were to take that in the morning before doing the blood work analysis, but it's still elevated. I'm not exactly sure what the reference range is for pregnant women. What I'll do is I'll look that up. I'll put up the reference range next to it for pregnant women, and then you guys can compare if I'm pregnant or not, or if my beta ACG levels are pregnancy-like. Yeah. Estradiol, like I mentioned before, 24, 25 picograms per milliliter. It's a little bit on the low side. Hopefully that will come up a little bit. Sex drive took a little bit of beating. I still feel focused. I still feel neuronally protected. And especially considering testosterone is only 651 nanograms per deciliter. So I feel okay. Hopefully that will come up a little bit. And otherwise, I might get a little bit of estrogen-like effects from the Clomid and the Nolvadex. FSH and LH are coming up a little bit. Usually on cycle, they're either undetectable or below the detectable range, like 0.02 or lower, or they're 0.03, 0.05. Last time they came up to 0.07, 0.08, and now they're still subclinical. FSH is 0.16 and LH is 0.18. So it's slowly coming up. HPTA is slowly coming back. But I'm going to incentivize that with Nolvadex and Clomid. And hopefully by the next time, they'll be like, 11 to 12 or maybe even 15 or maybe 20 MIUs per milliliter. Let's see. Testosterone, 651. All good. I'm happy with that. Free testosterone, 10.7 nanograms per deciliter. Right in the middle of the reference range. Just like total testosterone is around the middle of the reference range. But my bioavailable testosterone is high, 285 nanograms per deciliter, because my sexual binding globulin and my albumin are probably a little bit lower than what they need to be. So what you'll see is when you're drug-free is that your sexual binding globulin is usually around, well, now it's 47, but what I see in blood work with a lot of guys, usually around 50, 60. Some guys are even 80 nanomoles per liter under sexual binding globulin, which reduces the amount of free testosterone and bioavailable testosterone that they have. But everything considering, I'm happy, I'm pleased, I'm confident that this issue is getting resolved. So I expect my total testosterone to hover around 500 to 800 nanograms per deciliter when my PCT is finished. I expect my liver, with the changes that I've made in my supplementation, my small dietary changes that I made, and the fasting that I'm doing intermittently, not as much as I did before, but I'm still doing that maybe 1 day per week when it suits me. I feel that the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is slowly being resolved. Hopefully 4 weeks from now, that blood work continues to be improved, but I'm happy for now. I'm happy with the results. And I'm looking forward to the progress in the future. So I think it pretty much covers everything that we need to discuss in this video. I'm sure turned out to be like 45 minutes again or 1 hour again. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. I know not everybody makes it to the end because of attention deficit disorder, or they're no longer interested in what I have to say, or my monotonous voice. Again, English is not my first language, guys, so I'm doing the best with the limited vocabulary and the androgenic induced monotonous voice that I have. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you didn't like yet or subscribed yet, now is a very good time to do so. I highly appreciate it. I salute you. Leave me a comment for the algorithm to fuel YouTube and push this to a new audience. If you're looking for the PCT ebook, you can find that on my website, VigorousSteve.com/shop. 4 other ebooks are also published there, and the insulin ebook is coming soon. Stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for all your support. Thank you guys for all your messages through direct messages on Instagram or by email. I know a lot of you guys suspect that you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but you're unable to diagnose yourself because, if your healthcare system is not as forthcoming as what I'm able to do here in Thailand. So for the guys that can't diagnose it directly with an ultrasound, but their liver enzymes have been high for longer periods of time, just like mine were elevated for longer periods of time, years, basically. So for the guys that are following along and doing a similar protocol with intermittent fasting, full fasting, similar supplements, going off cycle as well, or reducing it to hormone replacement levels. For all the guys that are following along, I highly appreciate it, and I wish you all the best and good luck. And I hope you guys can all resolve this issue faster than what I'm doing, but I hope you can resolve it within a short window of time so you can proceed with your life carefully, just like I want to proceed with my life, carefree, and not have this lingering, like one organ is not 100% and you feel a bit, I don't know, you don't feel 100%. I will say that. You don't feel 100% when you know something is not functioning correctly. So I'm trying to resolve that as fast as I can and be 100% open with you guys and transparent. And for the guys that are following along, let's continue on this journey. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned for the update coming in 4 weeks from now.